Let me start this over. I'll explain it. So, homie here, Howard was just pointing out that Jacob had said in the past, had mentioned that there are a couple of the blankies, as he calls them, who come here and who are apparently from Middle Eastern countries or are Middle Eastern looking men, and that he feels somewhat like alarmed by it or something, I guess. I don't know. I certainly don't feel alarmed by it because, well, maybe because I live in America, or maybe just because I have faith in the power of discourse, ultimately. I know what I'm advocating is not a bad thing. What I'm advocating is simply that we don't allow Muslim immigrants into the country unless they can display a concrete ability to distinguish between symbol and reality. And that means becoming tolerant of desecrations of Islamic sacred books and all those other symbols. It means abandoning the preference for the symbolic over the preference for the real. So, to me, that's an important element of it. Another important element of it is the fact that each individual human being needs to be treated with equal rights. And, in the status quo in the Islamic world, most women are not. So those are my main points that I'm making. I don't believe that Muslims are terrorists. I don't think we should bomb them. I don't blah, blah, blah. In general, probably in terms of public policy, I'm in agreement with the Islamic world. I, for example, think that what happened to Palestinians is totally fucked up, and that Israel needs to afford them an independent state. They need to rule their own selves, and it's ridiculous to think that you're ever going to be anything but a militarized, occupied population of oppressed others in a Israeli-run, apartheid thing. It's the Jews doing the same thing to the Palestinians that the Muslims do to women in general. They're treating them like apartheid people. So, no, that's not okay. So, Israel's fucked up for that. Palestine deserves to have its own country back. The West was fucked up for doing that in the first place. And all that shit is true. Blah, 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 blah. So, people who come in here who are Muslim discover that on most substantive policy issues, I'm on their side. And also they discover that I condemn certain aspects of their culture that I deem, quote-unquote, pre-enlightenment in their thinking, and say we're better off to not allow them into the company of our Western free society nations, because I find Islam a particularly virulent, backwards-looking form of thinking that's destructive to secularism, which is definitely to be preferred. Hello, because secularism has warrants that can be evaluated objectively. You can say, well, you making this argument here, but you made a different argument here, blah, 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 blah. When you have religious arguments, it doesn't really matter, because the main text has so many different elements to it, and people can quote different parts to justify just about anything with those religious texts. That's why I'm not one to bother critiquing the books. A lot of people want to say, oh, the Quran is violent, blah, 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 blah. Who cares? That's not the point. It's totally missing the point. Look, people can build all sorts of cultures around old books and or mythologies or whatever you want to call them. And there's nothing wrong with that. If they build modern cultures with modern thinking around these old ideologies and manage to internalize them as one of a set of frameworks to acknowledge its magical thinking and to not try to impose it upon other people, to not use it to justify denying rights to half the population, well, then it's fine. It doesn't matter what the fuck the book says. right? So I don't like those arguments at all about how the Quran is so much worse of a book than the Bible or something. It's a bunch of fucking nonsense. It doesn't matter, right? Neither of the books are on their own merits worth anything at all because they're cobbled together bits of old wives' tales and soothsayers' wisdoms and whatever. And a lot of the wisdoms in them are fucking garbage at this point, and we all realize that if we stop and think about it for 5 seconds. Anyway, that's why we don't compare the actual books, because that's not how people live their lives. They don't live their lives in strict accordance to these books. They live their lives in conformity to an understanding of their culture and their religion that works for them personally and is shaped by their family and their community and stuff like that. The problem is, Islam incorporates into the lives of the average Muslim vastly more religious significance on everyday activities all day long than any Westerner ever experiences. For the most part, most people we know and most people here are more or less non-religious. That is to say, we may believe in God, or we may pray, we may even go to church or something, but we're by and large non-religious insofar as we don't apply religion much to our day-to-day livings. An exception might be not host Mark, who's pretty strongly Christian. But by and large, we don't have a lot of hyper-religious people here. So the threat from Islam is not a threat exactly specifically from Islam. It's a threat from an ideology that's backwards looking, that's exclusive, highly exclusive. In other words, that it manifests in ways that say all or nothing with it, and that doesn't seem to tolerate other religions particularly well. It's not specific to Islam, except that it's Islam that has all these specific traits, and so that's the problem. So that's the deal with the blankies, is when they come in and they hear me explaining all this stuff over and over again, it's my hope that they'll walk away from it thinking, you know what, he sure is making a lot of sense. If they have TI somewhere in that mix, they're going to have to stop and pull themselves back and go, okay, well, my only justifications for this then are religious, and that's okay, but I'm still right because it's all it says so, blah, 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 blah. But, know that God doesn't want you making bad arguments. Okay? Whether you call him Allah, whether you call him God, whatever, whether you think Muhammad is his prophet or Jesus, or whether you think frogs take you to the afterlife on the back of a carp in the Arboretum's largest catfish's mouth, then regardless, the point is, there's nothing holy or divine about not answering on point. Only evil and darkness come from not answering on point. There's nothing holy or divine about not engaging in open invitation to discourse about something you feel strongly about and then threatening violence. Talk it out. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but you got to prove it. You got to stand up. You got to man up with the discourse, right? The thing is, I am eminently fair, if nothing else in life. I am eminently, consistently fair. All you got to do is be correct. If you're not correct, don't blame me.